Slaanesh. Just gonna whip it out and slam it on the table. She's the best Chaos God to join, no doubt. If you gotta join one, gun to your head, no choice but to commit. Anyone that knows what's good is selling their tasty little soul to her. Cornates are rage-filled murder machines until they're the ones getting double-tapped with chain axes. Cool, but not fun. With Nurgle, you're forever a fat piece of crap, literally. And while you usually don't feel the pain of your countless wounds plus diseases, if for even a moment you're disconnected from your rotting papa, you will feel everything that's happened to you, which must be unimaginable hell. Zeech boys and girls are hitched to a god that's known as the Great Betrayer. Don't know what else needs to be said, but if you need an example, he regularly turns his followers into living books that sit on a shelf for thousands of years, completely aware, yet unable to do anything but go insane over and over again. Slaanesh by far has the best odds of you actually enjoying being enslaved to a cosmic terror. Don't get me wrong, as with worship to any of the ruinous powers, there is a high probability of getting screwed over. Downsides for her worship could be getting cannibalized Hannibal Lecter style, getting hung on a meat hook, or the huge potential for becoming a homosexual. That's a permanent bottom. Still, the chances of you getting blessed by Slaanesh are a lot higher than with the other Chaos Gods, with some being rewarded with their very own palace of pleasure by just being a lazy fuck that stuffs his face all day like Glutus Oscolian, Lord of Gluttony. Plus, as you can see, you can become one of the best managers CA has ever made. If being lazy and fat can get you into Slaanesh's good graces, the vast majority of Americans would be purple and somehow even hornier. Slaanesh's most common names are the Dark Prince, Prince of Pleasure, She Who Thirsts, and Lord of Excess. She is the Chaos God of pleasure, pain, hedonism, excess, and perfection. Lust, pride, and self-indulgences are the most obvious signs of a boob god follower. She is by far the youngest of the Dark Gods, coming into existence millions of years after the other three. She is dedicated to the pursuit of earthly gratification and the destruction of all decent behavior. She is a lover of sick obsessions, from gluttony to lust to megalomania. Her favored colors are dark purple, pink, and black, like a girl going through her Hot Topic phase that she swears to her mom isn't a phase. Wherever mortals are ruled by their unquenchable desires, the Dark Prince is there, in the shadows, whispering, tempting, chewing on your earlobe and feasting on a banquet of souls. Those who indulge in the finest culinary delights, the most beautiful artworks, the most sensual clothing, could all be amongst Slaanesh's disciples. Just as much as lust, she is the god of perfection. The singer striving for the most beautiful song, or the warrior seeking the most perfect fighting techniques, both could be balls deep in the Prince of Pleasure. I'm only going to touch on Slaanesh's birth like she touches me in my dreams, because my next video will be on the fall of the Eldar, in depth, so I'm saving a lot of the juicy info for that. Slaanesh was given life by the immorality and hubris of the ancient Eldar Empire. As their empire peaked, like mean homeschool, the Eldari became lost in their own decadence, for they experienced sensation and emotion to a far greater extent than any other intelligent species at this time in the galaxy. Their highly advanced technology meant that they did not need to labor or wage war. They were living that Elon Musk version of life with free income for all that'll definitely happen RL. No one. They were able to dedicate their lives to whatever idle pursuits they liked. Over several generations, this indulgence came to rule and pervert their souls. This degeneracy would spiral out of control as most of Eldar society became a corrupted, twisted pleasure cult. On a particularly brutal day, when their cities were filled with rivers of blood and other bodily fluids, a dark being would breathe its first breath in the warp. This breath would inhale the souls of millions of Eldari and create what humanity would later call the Cicidrix Maledictum, or Eye of Terror. From that day forward, a new dark god would terrorize the universe, known as Slaanesh. The powers of chaos hold sway over so many mortals, not because they represent some strange concept with rare appeal that'll make you a special little snowflake. No, they are insidious because they are the opposite. With Khorne, it is the inherent nature of conflict, the struggle to survive. For Nurgle, it is the inevitability of death and decay, with the fear and despair this brings. With Tzeentch, it is the ever-changing nature of the universe, and the need to feel some measure of control through the pursuit of knowledge and power. These are all base instincts of every mortal mind, primal parts of the lives of every intelligent living thing in the galaxy. Khorne is a warrior, terrible to behold. Tzeentch's sorcery forces his form to defy all logic, and Nurgle is the ultimate embodiment of his own decaying, physically disgusting creed. Slaanesh alone is divinely beautiful, holding features that please the eyes of any. The Dark Prince usually appears in an androgynous form, in which she is a woman on the right side and man on the left, with horns growing from her head. She can assume any gender or no gender at all. In whatever physical form she chooses, Slaanesh is perfection. A long-limbed, elegant figure with a haunting beauty, her form changes to please and seduce the eye of the beholder. The Dark Prince's hand can be seen at work across the galaxy in countless ways. The joy a parent feels when a child is born, the pride an admiral feels when his fleet executes a cunning plan, the stirring of a person's heart when in the embrace of their lover, or the rush of pleasurable relief that reminds a soldier how good it feels to be alive after an unexpected skirmish. All of these sensations, on some small level, are pleasing to the Master of Delights. These sensations are far from enough to satisfy her, though. A god experiences existence on a level far beyond that of which any mortal can even dream of. She who thirsts sees the stars, the planets, and the very fabric of reality itself as its plaything, to be poked, ripped, and tightly bound to her will in order to squeeze out every last drop of sensation there is to enjoy. Those who serve Slaanesh seek to emulate her as best they can, limited though by mortal form and imagination. Worshippers spend their time inventing new delights, challenging themselves to craft experiences no one has had before. Truly unique sensation is obviously quite hard to come by. Few have had the pleasure of seeing entire squads of Astartes evaporate under the fire of a Chaos Titan. Even less have heard the cries of millions be snuffed out in a moment by an exterminatus event. Here's a metal as fuck quote from a Emperor's Children warpsmith. Mere killing should never be enough. How much more intense is the feeling of inhaling the mist created when you vibrate a foe's body until he vaporizes? How much more completely have you explored all a person can offer you than when you breathe them into yourself, leaving only the memory of them still a part of this world? Many factions of humanity have rules that deny and restrain base enjoyments. For the defense of all the good the Emperor has created, they demand that each moment of a citizen's waking life be filled with labor, prayer, and punishment. Kinky. They believe that a human mind left to reflect on anything else is liable to wander towards selfish desires. There's a risk to this approach to order, for chaos can easily be born from it. The harsh laws of planetary governors have turned many who would otherwise never embrace Slaanesh. A mind overwhelmed with hardship has no time for thoughts of sin. But when a moment does come, fleeting as it may be, it stands out against the darkness of life as a burning candle of possibility. For many who stray, sin is not taken for the sake of rebelliousness, but a way to find relief. Relief from the constant struggle, relief from dogmatic rules, relief from restraint. Slaanesh offers relief in large amounts. Need for relief is obviously not just for the downtrodden, as those removed from the harshness of daily torment simply get bored. People with the time and means often find experimentation appealing. The finest food, most exotic dancers, those with wealth can acquire this and much more. Those corrupted by Slaanesh at first experience every sensation with an unbridled sense of wonder, feeling every aspect of their life as if through new eyes tinted with wonder. But as time goes on, it requires even more extremes of sensation to feel the same bursts of pleasure, soon leading to a new need to be constantly surrounded by extremes of sound or garish colors, particularly bright pinks and dark purples. In time, they will engage in sadistic murder and the most degrading sexual practices in order to feel the enhanced pleasure of Slaanesh. Groups that have been knowingly or unknowingly corrupted by the Dark Prince often engage in radical body modifications, using makeup or clothing, all the way up to extreme body surgery, intending to increase their perfection, even though most end up looking like psychotic whores. Ultimately, even death itself becomes an experience of immense pleasure, both dealing it out to others and, in the end, undergoing it themselves. A final moment of orgasmic pleasure before their soul is absorbed by Slaanesh. The enhanced pleasures and sensations experienced by every soul corrupted by the Lord of Excess strengthens her in the warp, where the psychic emanations of such deeds further feed the young Chaos God's power. Slaanesh is said to have little interest in the other ruinous powers, being too caught up with the art of self-sucking. However, followers of Khorne, with their simple beliefs in bloodshed, are specially hated enemies. Cults dedicated to Khorne and Slaanesh are known to clash frequently in the mortal realm, just as their demonic legions battle endlessly in the realm of chaos. A widespread, technically advanced conflict is particularly vulnerable to Slaaneshi influence, as a single well-placed convert can have means to wreck a fleet or destroy an entire planet. Of all the complexities of the great game, which is the eternal war between the main four Chaos Gods, the most interesting is perhaps the relationship between Slaanesh and her fellow Dark Gods. None can amplify Khorne's fury like the Lord of Excess, whose earthly luxuries and lusts defy the Blood God's desire for indiscriminate slaughter. The mere mention of Slaanesh is enough to cause volcanoes to erupt across Khorne's domain. Though Khorne is the only god that really wants to hate-fuck the Dark Prince, Nurgle and Tzeentch are also ill at ease in her presence, despite the fact that most say Slaanesh is the overall weakest of the Chaos Gods. Yet they feel the pull of Slaanesh's matchless riz and are both attracted as well as repelled, like a guy getting turned on by some weird chick that's kinda hot and kinda not. This is due, in part, to the fact that all Chaos Gods embody in some form the excess that Slaanesh rules over. Khorne with his bloodlust, Tzeentch with his scheming, and Nurgle with his spreading of plague. Each is an obsession that the Dark Prince can turn to her will. Lurking deep within the psyche of each of her brothers is the sus thought that the influence of the Lord of Excess is rapidly growing, and that the Boner God will perhaps one day eclipse them all in strength. We will start our discussion of Slaanesh's domain in the Chaos Realm with a quote from a preacher that entered this place. I prepared to enter her realm, expecting to encounter guardians who would seek to tear into me with talons and fangs. At the least, I assumed I would find bastions to bar my progress. I found none. The land before me was open and pristine. Its fields shimmered like gold, and its forests bore fruits of sapphires and emeralds. I took a step into this place and instantly knew I was lost just as surely as if I had been impaled on a demon's spike. The Dark Prince's personal palace of pleasure is sitting at the center of her empire, surrounded by 6 other domains arranged in rings. Each ring holds different temptations for those who wander through it, imploring them to succumb to the pleasures it offers. Temptation is a weapon just as powerful as a chainsword or bolter. Traps can be sprung to eliminate the weak and ugly. The bodies of those who fall prey to the myriad temptations of the Dark Prince's realm are consumed by the land or turned into statues that decorate it. The souls of the damned feed Slaanesh's hunger. The realm invites them in to feed its master. Those who pass the basic bitch early tests may give her a little amusement for a time as she watches them resist only to inevitably lose themselves to one seduction or another. In the first ring, the night sky shimmers ceaselessly. The heavens are filled with diamonds that seem as if they could be plucked from their place in the sky if one could just reach a little further. Indeed, this is what the Dark Prince wants them to believe, so that they climb to the highest peaks only to fall, shattering their bodies. Their end is filled with temporary joy as they still see endless shining jewels, but lose their souls. Mad ravings from those who claim to have seen beyond the first ring say they are confronted by a lake so vast its shorelines fade to nothing in the distance. The only thing to see is a few islands that connect by a network of bridges. The lake is made of the most exquisite wine with a strong scent. There are no cups to be found, so many resort to drinking straight from the lake. Weaker souls will grow so drunk they slip into the delectable liquid, joining many others at the bottom. Some will swim to the islands and realize they're actually hunched over giants. On their backs are tables covered in the most delicious meats they have ever tasted. Faster and faster they consume the meat, handfuls at a time. In their blind need to eat, they do not realize that some of the meat comes from carcasses with a familiar form. Even if they could stop forcing food into their own stomach long enough to see the fate that awaits them, they would not stop. Given completely to gluttonous indulgence, they only stop eating when their bodies fail and they collapse onto the feast table, awaiting the next hungry diner. There is perhaps no easier way to corrupt a mortal than to appeal to their carnal desires. The Dark Prince knows this, and so the third ring is filled with visions, scents, and experiences that overload their entire being. Rich fields of pleasantly textured grass fill this ring, lit with teasing golden hues. Daemon and mortal bodies bang so hard they become one. Forms so beautiful they are difficult to look at lie here beckoning them like a naughty English teacher does her students. Why is it always English teachers banging their students? Anyway, the very air here is heavy with powerful musk that quickens the heart, opening their senses further than they thought possible. A mortal in this state is easy prey for the daemonettes that will give kisses from razor-sharp fanged mouths and embraces from piercing claws. Within the ranks of all militaries, talk of glory is common. When battles are won, the returning heroes are showered with praise. This effect on soldiers can be intense. More is possible, they think. More glory can be theirs. In these thoughts, a path to Slaanesh's fourth ring is laid at their feet. For each visitor, the experience is unique. though there are similarities for many. Massed throngs greet the soldier, cheering his name and erecting statues in his honor. These dreams are grand, but seem realistic to all, as many have seen or heard of others gaining similar glory. Self-doubt gnaws at only a few, and these are the ones who wake to see this ring for what it truly is. They see a vast plain of black soot, where mountains of bones are buried beneath millions of others, still trapped in their individual illusions. This image flashes for only an instant before they are taken to the second ring. A forest with dense clusters of majestic trees that house secluded glades is where they find themselves. The wind between the trees produces a sound that makes one introspective. The area is inviting and serene. In the center of each glade is a perfectly still pool that draws people in it to sit and reflect upon their thoughts. As they stare into the pool, they think of their great deeds. Sitting there lost in thoughts, the greenery around them begins to creep forward. Vines descend from the trees, ready to strangle them. While they continue to sit, now thinking of the future, the water will take the form of their greatest enemy. Right when this happens, the now alert soul will feel the vines choke the air from their lungs. The sounds of their last scream is a delicacy for the Prince of Pleasure. Few resist resting in the pools, but those that do move on to the final ring. The last ring is seemingly simple, and there lies the danger. A paradise that invites those to simply rest is here. A beach with the softest sand, warmed by the rays of a golden sun. Music is carried on the gentle breeze as the ground itself rises to massage tired muscles, while cherubs come to remove heavy arms and armor. The memories of your hard journey disappear, and peace is yours at last. If you're gonna fail in Slaanesh's rings, this is the one to do it. Those most determined, though, to finish the journey will fight every instinct to stay, and will finally make it to Slaanesh herself's home. A determined warrior, mortal or demon, who survived the many rings would probably believe that surely Slaanesh's residence, her seat of power, would be defended by legions of daemonettes, her most powerful keeper of secrets. Thick walls must surround this place, but no, she has no need of such crude defenses. Unseen choirs sing for any invader, their ears weeping at the unholy harmonies. A god emerges from her palace, striding confidently toward the awestruck invaders. The Dark Prince smiles. It is enough to completely disarm any who stand in her presence. They are lost, though they care little for this fact. This is why the tales say there are no walls or defenders here, for there is simply no need. Resistance in the face of perfection is not a possibility. It may be that the only resident here is Slaanesh herself. Perhaps there are no other beings in the inner sanctum, or maybe it is a den filled with endless debauchery. None know, for none have ever entered and come back out. All that is certain is this is the home of Slaanesh herself. I'll only go over one known character that is a follower of the god of swaying perfect hips, for all others, like Fulgrim or Nakari, will have their own videos. A herald of Slaanesh, known as Sil Lewdtongue, very on-the-nose name, I know, was once shunned in Slaanesh's domain for growing too attached to the mortals she was supposed to lead to destruction. Her unique affection would lead to glory when a Seki, a fighter in one of the gladiatorial arenas in Slaanesh's garden, caught Sil's eye. The demon herald decided to guide the mortal to even greater heights of carnage. Eseki's newfound patron allowed him to ascend and become a demon prince, only to be shunned by his new demonic peers for once being mortal. This power couple would tear a path of bloody vengeance on all those that had shunned them till they reached the throne of Slaanesh herself. She would bind their fates forever in marriage, I mean a dark pact. Now a symbiotic entity known as Slaanesh, the alliance which had made them outsiders, now paved the way for their mutual ascension. I hope you enjoyed. Now be a fellow lover of Slaanesh and subscribe, like, and comment. I'll see you in the next lore video, The Fall of the Eldar.